Okay, so this will be made available after the event as well, if you want to watch it again or share it with anyone else. So today we've got with us a few members of the team from AstraZeneca. We have Michael, Adam, and Lottie, and we should have Kim joining us a little bit later on as well. So yeah, without further ado, AstraZeneca's got some really interesting stuff that they want to sort of present to you today. Tell you all about their company, all about technology and how technology impacts AstraZeneca. So Adam, when you're ready, feel free to carry on.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Jack. So hi, everyone. Welcome to this session. My name's Adam Isle. I'm the Talent Acquisition Lead for AstraZeneca's Early Talent Programs. I'm joined by Michael Tong, who's the Data Sciences and AI and R&D Graduate Program Manager Lead. We'll also be joined shortly by Kim Brandt, who's the IT/Technology Leadership Program Manager. And we also have Charlotte Behadian on the call, who's a Project Manager at AstraZeneca and who was a entry into our Technology Leadership Graduate Program in 2018. Thanks also to Joy, who's the AstraZeneca Cardiff University rep and who's also on the call with us. Thanks, Joy, for organising this for us. We hope it's a great session, and we look forward to connecting with Cardiff students. So without further ado, I'll just give you an overview of the agenda, which hopefully you're all seeing in front of you now. So we're going to talk briefly around the strategic priorities and what AstraZeneca is all about. Many of you may know us, many of you may know nothing about us, so we're just going to assume nothing and just give you a very brief overview. We're going to talk a little bit about our culture and the range of early talent programs that we have available for you to explore. And in particular, we're going to do a bit more of a deep dive into two programs which we think you'll be really excited about. They're fantastic programs from our graduate suite. They are the Data Sciences and AI Graduate Program, which Michael Tong leads, and they are the Technology Leadership Graduate Program, which Kim Brandt leads. So Michael, Kim, and Charlotte will be giving you a bit more of an insight into those programs in particular as a focus. We're going to have a call to action at the end, so we'd love you to use our registration tool to be able to find out more about these programs and others to make sure you don't miss out on key application deadlines and an opportunity to connect with us further. And we're going to try and keep 10-15 minutes at the end of this session for a Q&A. I understand it's the end of the day for people. We'll try and keep it there. I'm happy to hang on a little bit longer if the Q&As last a bit longer, but appreciate people may need to drop off. So that's the agenda. Thanks again. And without further ado, we're going to start with a brief video. Well, that sums up better than I can a bit of an AstraZeneca insight, really, and an overview of the organisation, but hopefully you picked up on the key point there. We are a science company, a global biopharmaceutical company, and our mission really is to push the boundaries of science to deliver life-changing medicines. Whatever part of the organisation you join, whether you're interested in technology, data sciences, AI, HR, operations, etc. You know, core and fundamental to everything we do is the science message. Clearly, however, you don't have to be a scientist to join AstraZeneca, but it's important that you have a passion and an interest in healthcare and the you know, the really important work that we do, because it does genuinely touch every aspect of our organisation. So in terms of our strategic priorities, what we're trying to achieve as a business, we're looking to accelerate innovative science. There is a real huge agenda from within AstraZeneca to push the boundaries of science, and that's something that we do all day, every day. And there's really exciting, groundbreaking work that goes on in our labs, across our R&D facilities, and in all aspects of our business and our organisation. It's what makes us unique, and it's really what helps us to then achieve our objectives as a business overall. We also are looking to deliver growth and therapy area leadership. That may not mean much to you, but let me explain briefly what it means to us. So AstraZeneca is an organisation that's been going since, you know, for many, many years. The nature of the pharmaceutical industry is that it tends to be that businesses' success peaks and goes down depending on the patent expiry and the profit generated from those patents in terms of the pharmaceutical products we have. And for a period of time from about 2012 to about 2016-17, AstraZeneca's revenue wasn't growing, it was going down because our patents many of our big patents had expired, and therefore from a business perspective and turnover perspective, our revenues were decreasing. So we've obviously addressed that, and we're now in a period of growing. So we're continuing to grow, and that's our ambition to do so through the generation of good quality products. So delivering growth and therapy area leadership is very important to us. And therapy area leadership just relates to the therapy areas that AstraZeneca are active in, which we'll find out a little bit more about shortly. And finally, we have 3 strategic priorities, and we're really proud of the fact that we call out being a great place to work as one of our 3 strategic priorities as a company globally. And hopefully you'll get the sense through this course of this talk and from speaking to Michael, Charlotte, Kim, and the rest of the team at AstraZeneca that we genuinely want that to be an important part of everything we do. So being a great place to work is really important to us. The structure of the organisation, in as much as you need to understand it now, is displayed in front of you. The reason we pulled this slide up is we just wanted to demonstrate to you that you may join and you may be interested in different parts of our organisation. They all interact with and support and build upon each other. There's no getting away from that. And as I said, they're all linked by the science. So if you're in our operations function, if you're in our enabling or IT or procurement function, you may not be doing the science, but you'll be working closely with and partnering with the parts of the area of the business that really do drive the science and the products. So I mentioned therapy area leadership is important to us. You'll see here we have oncology R&D. So oncology relates to cancer and the research and development units that go to support those drug development projects in cancer. We have an oncology business unit that supports that from a commercial perspective. So reaching out to the general practitioners and the healthcare physicians that work in hospitals to educate them about our products and how to position their products in a way that makes best use of their technology and their impact for the patients that most appropriately need them. Biopharmaceuticals R&D includes 2 therapy areas that are particularly important to us at AstraZeneca, and they are the cardiovascular and metabolic disease areas, so heart disease, that kind of stuff, and then respiratory, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and asthma we're very active into, and respiratory, you may have heard of this thing called COVID-19, which apparently is quite big at the moment, and that falls under our respiratory therapy area. So it's something that we're very active and obviously trying our best to address. So just to touch further on our kind of structure from a geographic spread, we're a global company. We're active in over 100 countries internationally, but we're also an Anglo-Swedish company, and our global headquarters is here in the UK in Cambridge. So we moved our global HQ down from Cheshire about 3 or 4 years ago, and we currently have 8 or 9 different sites across Cambridge, where we're waiting to consolidate into our brand new Cambridge Biomedical Campus building, which is super cool and is almost ready for us to move into. It's a $500 million investment in this new facility. It's an amazing place, and I think I'm right in saying that over the last few years it's been the biggest R&D site build in Europe. So we're really proud of it, and we can't wait to move into it. It's not quite ready yet. That being said, although Cambridge is our global headquarters and the centre of our operations in the UK in terms of R&D, we have a huge and very significant presence in the northwest of the UK in Cheshire. So Macclesfield is a really important global strategic manufacturing site for us, and Audley Park remains a part of our science sort of environment, if you like. So whether or not, depending on which program you're interested in, as long as you're interested in joining us in the UK, it's quite possible that you may be based in either the Macclesfield site in the northwest in Cheshire, or one of our sites in Cambridge. So Cambridge is important, but it's not all about Cambridge in the UK, and globally, Cambridge is just one of our many important and strategic sites. And just in terms of our organisation, we are growing significantly at the moment. And to put that into context, we are the fastest growing top 10 multinational pharmaceutical company in emerging markets and the #1 in China. So although as a company, we have a big focus on our 3 hubs, and for us, our hubs are the US, the UK and Sweden. We're very active in Asia, and we're growing really, really fast in some of those markets, and China is a really important one to us. So we have a global mindset, and wherever you join us and wherever you're interested in joining us, you will hopefully be aware and will feel the fact that we're a global company. So I'm not going to embarrass myself or make Michael cringe, who is a scientist, by trying to explain much, if at all, about the science that we do at AstraZeneca. But I just wanted to highlight and touch on again the fact that we have main therapy areas in oncology, which is cancer, cardiovascular, renal and metabolic disease, respiratory and immunology, and we also have a focus on some other disease areas, which include things like neuroscience. The 3 main therapy areas are the oncology, cardiovascular, renal, metabolic, and respiratory and immunology. And we consider the other disease areas to be more opportunistic. So what we mean by that is that they are important to us as an organization. They're often areas where we will partner with external organization to out-license our science, or perhaps we might in-license science from organizations that are active in neuroscience. And the reason why they're important to us, but they're not core to our success as a business, is because some of the science involved in some of those disease areas, especially neuroscience, if you think about things like Alzheimer's, for example, it's incredibly complex and difficult to prove the veracity of drugs and the treatments in that area. So it's not a business model that would be sustainable purely if we looked at things like neuroscience, for example. So oncology, CVRM, respiratory and immunology are really our core activities. And to give you some sense of what that means in the UK footprint, Cambridge and the UK are a centre of excellence for both oncology and we also do some neuroscience here. So if you join us in the UK, you're very likely to be involved in work that contributes towards our oncology, our cancer agenda. That being said, we're a global company, and we've got people in Cambridge and Macclesfield in the northwest across the UK who are involved in CVRM and respiratory and immunology projects too. So I mentioned that we want to talk a little bit about AstraZeneca as a company and the culture that we have within the company. I said that we want to be a great place to work, and it's really one of our key priorities. We can't deliver on our purpose without our people. I know you'll hear that about, you'll hear many companies talk to you and say, oh, well, people are our most important asset. And, but it's absolutely true. And it should be true for every organization you consider joining or you've worked for. But what I would say is you really feel that at AstraZeneca. It's something that we really not just talk about, but we really live that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight the fact that of our 3 strategic priorities, being a great place to work is one of those 3. And that's reasonably unusual for a large company to state that so centrally to its mission. So I guess, how do we do that, and what does that look like? Well, one of the ways in which we sort of link our culture to our business and link our recruitment, our talent acquisition processes to our culture is by working to recruit people who share our 5 values. So you'll see in front of you that we have 5 values, and whether or not you're being recruited into one of our graduate programs, such as the data sciences and AI or the technology leadership graduate program, you're going to hear a bit more about, or whether you're interested in joining us in a different type of role entirely, or maybe one of our other roles outside of our early talent programs, you will be assessed or interviewed, if you like, with these 5 values in mind. So they are: we put patients first, we follow the science, we do the right thing, we are entrepreneurial, and we play to win. And the values that we have, and those are the 5, they really touch all aspects of what we do. So although I work in talent acquisition, and I've always worked within the HR function and early talent, you know, it's important to me that I follow the science. However, what I would say is, as I said at the beginning of the subject, you know, you don't have to be a scientist to work at AstraZeneca, and following the science for me in my role might just be about using data to make informed decisions, taking evidence to make management decisions and to take actions. So when we say that, you know, it's important that you follow the science, you don't have to think of yourself joining AstraZeneca and in some shape or form being expected to go into a laboratory or do any scientific work. What we want you to do, however, is to think about yourself as someone who is driven by data, who makes informed, evidence-based decisions, and that for us is following the science. I want to just call out another one of them because I think it's easy to misunderstand what it means. So we say that we play to win. And for us, we play to win isn't we play to win at all costs. So we are not a company or an organization that is full of you know, highly competitive megalomaniacs who just want to crush everyone as they climb their way up the organization. Far from it, and hopefully you'll get that you'll get the impression that is not the case from the people you speak to today on this call. But we do, however, want to be ambitious for ourselves. We want to be ambitious for our science and for our organization, because, you know, we can only deliver that really cutting edge product for our patients whose quality of life and, you know, health outcomes rely on the great work we do, by having an absolute focus on doing the best that we possibly can. So that's what we mean when we talk about playing to win. It's really driving everything we can and everything we can do as teams to actually achieve the outcomes for our patient. We are entrepreneurial. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. We encourage people to be to think outside the box, to try new things, you know, to try and fail with pride. You know, science is a really complex process. Drug discovery is incredibly fraught. And most of our products, unfortunately, that we sort of, you know, start to do research on, never actually make it to market. They fail at the scientific hurdles that we set in place to make sure that only the best stuff gets to market. So, you know, we need to be entrepreneurial to think creatively about how we can drive forward our agenda. And we do the right thing really is what it says. You know, it really is what it means. The biopharmaceutical industry globally, like many industries, in fact, is highly regulated, rightly so, from an ethical perspective, but also from a corporate and compliance perspective. But more than that, for AstraZeneca, it's about treating our suppliers, treating our patients with absolute sort of honesty, and being transparent and being ethical in every aspect of what we do. And again, that's something that I would say over the 5 years that I've worked for the company, I really feel plays through in all aspects of everything we do. Whether you're interacting with patients, I don't personally do that, or whether you're working with suppliers, you know, we do the right thing is something that we feel is really important to our company and our organization. Something else that's really important to us, and as a member of the wider HR team, I'm also really passionate about, is lifelong learning. So you're going to hear a bit about some of our fantastic early talent programs. You'll get huge learning opportunities if you join any of them. But whether or not you're joining one of our early talent programs, or whether or not you're considering joining AstraZeneca as an employer generally, you will be expected to and encouraged to continue to grow. As you can see, I'm not a graduate anymore. It's been a long time since I've been studying. Yet I'm constantly having, you know, challenging conversations with my boss, who's telling me, you know, to think about how I should be stretching myself, what learning opportunities I need to exploit in order to be better at my job and to reach my potential. And the same goes true for our graduates and our postdocs and our PhDs and our apprentices. You know, you will get formal support and training, but you will also be expected, once you complete your programs, to continue to be ambitious for yourself and to develop. And we are really fortunate at AstraZeneca that we have some amazing platforms and resources that we can draw on in order to be able to be the best that we can be in our work, and to find out and develop the skills that we need to be successful. And that's not just technically successful in the jobs that we do, it's successful as business professionals. So, you know, whether or not you're interested in being a great leader, or you want to become more effective in some of the ways in which you do your job in terms of sort of, you know, setting strategy or using technology tools to be more effective in your science, etc. You know, we have huge resources available for us to be able to learn and drive that learning on our own. And we're really encouraged to take advantage of them. Frankly, there's too many for me to be able to take advantage of all of them. At least that's a struggle I find. But lifelong learning is a really big part of our culture. You'll have heard briefly in that presentation film strip that we had earlier that sustainability is an important part of AstraZeneca. And I was really pleased and proud early on in the year when our CEO, Pascal Soriot, stood up at the Davos meeting. In fact, it was this year, I think, yeah, to make really bold commitments from AstraZeneca in terms of our sustainability agenda. And if you're interested in AstraZeneca's sustainability, whether that's from a access to healthcare perspective, environmental protection, or ethics and transparency perspective, I'd really encourage you to have a look at some of the really great resources on our AstraZeneca.com website, and also on our YouTube channel, where you'll find out a little bit more about things that we're doing in this space. But to give you a flavour, access to healthcare, you know, it's really important to us as a healthcare company that we work with industry and other partners to remove barriers to access for people, regardless of social or economic condition. So our approach is centred on understanding of the healthcare systems and the needs of people who live in emerging economies. So we have lots of agendas and initiatives where we provide access to healthcare for people that might otherwise not be able to afford it. Environmental protection, I'm sure that you guys are all aware of the importance of this these days, but we set science-based emissions reduction targets, and we were one of the first FTSE 350 companies to have them approved by the Science Based Targets Initiative. And from our perspective, we know that investing in new product design, clean technologies, and more efficient processes will save money and save resources and help contribute to a better planet. And again, that's something that that we're really passionate about. And from an ethics and transparency perspective, we really strive to model an ethical business culture by going above and beyond those legal requirements I mentioned earlier. And this for us is all about fostering an environment where our employees can speak up if they have questions or encounter wrongdoing. And we have a really strong code of ethics, which helps us to strengthen our employee understanding by outlining our commitment to in simple terms to focusing on why these commitments really matter. And this is part and parcel of our corporate values and the 5 values I mentioned earlier. And these kind of values, our expected behaviours and our global policies are a really important part of being in AstraZeneca. And you'll find, if you're interested in looking at any big company in the pharmaceutical industry, that you know, corporate ethics and compliance are really important for very good reasons. So we're going to talk a little bit now about our early talent programs. And before I do, I just wanted to mention something that I failed to mention when I talked about our values. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about our values and how they come into our assessment processes, you can look at our Facebook Live careers pages, and you'll see that there's actually a video presentation that myself and Abdul Ali recorded earlier in the year, where we talk a bit more about hints and tips on values-based interviews. So our values are used in our interview process. Values, behaviors, competencies, you may have heard of these kind of terms, but you may be a bit intimidated by that as an application process. And if you want some extra insights into our values and how we use them in our interview and assessment processes, that video is a really good resource, and it gives you a lot of practical understanding of what it really means, and will hopefully help prepare you if you move forward to an assessment stage with us. There's also a session there on graduate assessment centres too. So AstraZeneca's early talent programs. We have a wide range of early talent programs available within the company, and in the UK in particular, that means summer placement studentships, university industrial placement studentships, so year in industry, industrial placement year, but we call them UIPs. We have graduates and masters programs, and you're going to hear a little bit more about a couple of those shortly. We have PhD studentships available, and we also have a postdoctoral program. And again, I might touch on those depending on how much time we've got after we hear from Michael and from Kim and Charlotte. But in summary, just to set up some context, AstraZeneca's graduate programs, generally speaking, are all a minimum of 2 years in duration. They're located in our hubs and also in additional countries, depending on which program you're interested in. So again, our hubs are the UK, US, and Sweden. They are all paid employment opportunities, and we consider them to be well paid. And they are foundation for the next step in your career, really. And again, you'll hear a little bit more about the data sciences and AI and the technology leadership programs shortly, where you'll get to hear and understand a bit more about what we're trying to achieve with those programs and the kind of experiences that you may get on them. But for you in the UK, you'll be pleased to hear that you have probably the widest possible selection of programs available to you in terms of graduate programs. And I just wanted to highlight here on this slide a little bit more about each of them in terms of when we're advertising for them and the closing dates. So they're in alphabetical order, which is why they've been laid out like this. So the Biometrics and Information Sciences program includes statistics, programming, and information sciences. We will be launching the adverts for that program next year. It's probably likely to be somewhere in the region of the February time, but we haven't yet confirmed the opening and closing dates. But just look out for that, especially if you're a statistician or a programmer. You might find that really interesting, the Biometrics and Information Sciences program. Biopharmaceutical development is a very lab-based science program, should I say, and we go really early with that. So we've actually already closed the applications for that program in October, so earlier last month. Michael is going to tell you a bit more about data sciences and AI, and the adverts for that program are open now and they will close in January. And Charlotte and Kim will tell you more about the technology leadership program, and again the adverts are open now, and again for the UK we'll be closing adverts in January. Then you'll also have the operations and supply chain. So the operations and supply chain graduate program is open to any discipline degree subject. So although you may be interested in tech, you may be cyber, you may be AI, data science, etc. Like several of our other programs, the ops and supply chain may also be something you might want to consider and explore. Pharmaceutical technology and development, very much a science-based program to do with the way in which we formulate our drugs once they've come out of the discovery stage. So the development phase of the research and development program in terms of getting products to market, and then R&D, which if we have time and anyone has any questions at the end, I'm sure Michael will give you a bit more insight into as he runs that program. And unlike me, is a scientist, so can speak with much more authority on these things. Okay, so I just whistled through things there. Apologies for how quick we went, but I wanted to now hand over to Michael, who is going to talk to you a little bit about the data sciences and AI graduate program. So Michael, I'll mute myself and I'll then just drive the slides. So let me know when you want to move on.
Will do. Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining the session and inviting us along to talk today. So yeah, as Adam's kindly mentioned a few times, I have got a background in science. So I've been with AstraZeneca for nearing 17 years now, 15 of which were actually spent in the labs working on early projects. So my background's in biochemistry. And then a couple of years ago, I decided to make the change and move into the management of the 2 R&D programs that we have within our R&D organization. So they are the Data Science and AI program, which I'm going to talk about now, and our Research and Development program, which is focused on recruiting bioscience and chemistry graduates. And like Adam says, if there is any questions specifically about that at the end, I'd be happy to answer those. If you move to the next slide. So our Data Science and AI graduate program sits within our R&D organization. So if you remember back to Adam's slide earlier on, that's focused on those therapy areas where we're actually researching new projects to deliver new therapies out to those patients. But what we're not looking for through this program is necessarily a scientific background. What we're trying to recruit onto this program is people who have got really strong data science and AI skills, so highly numerate degree disciplines such as maths and physics or quantitative sciences, bachelor's and master's, that will have been obtained within the previous 12 months. So the applications that are open now will be for graduates who finished either in this year or will be due to finish their bachelor's or master's degrees next year. We're looking for people who've got experience in Python or all those other multi-data centric programming languages, which can enable us to analyze the large sets of data that we have within R&D and deliver these new models and new AI algorithms to kind of help us with the delivery of our scientific projects. We run this program in 3 locations globally, and these are aligned with our R&D hubs. So these are in the UK, in Cambridge. In the US, we actually have Boston and Gaithersburg as our R&D hubs, and over in Sweden, we have Gothenburg as the main R&D center there. On this program, though, we don't offer international rotation. So if you're applying to one of the locations, that's where you would be based throughout the 2 years that you're with us. And you do need to be eligible to work at the countries or the locations that you'd be applying to. If you move to the next slide. So the program itself was actually started in 2018, 2019. So it's been ongoing. It's a fairly new program for us, as data science and AI is slowly being started to kind of be integrated into all of our R&D projects and into the R&D organization. So this was set up to kind of meet that need of recruiting new graduates into this area to kind of help push our sciences along. It is a 2-year program, so there is no guaranteed retention at the end of this program. But you would join us for those 2 years, and during that 2-year time, you will do 3 8-month rotations. Now these, I'll come on to the rotations in a little bit more, but those rotations will be focused on the science and working with our scientists to deliver new data science or AI methods. Alongside though the technical development that you would get from these rotations, there's also a focus on development around that lifelong learning that Adam mentioned earlier. And you will be enrolled on our graduate program development modules. These are run in conjunction with our R&D program and also the PT&D graduate program at the moment. But we are looking, as ever, to improve these development and offerings that we have for our graduates, because we do believe it's a really important opportunity to help not only that technical development, but those professional skill development for early career individuals who join AstraZeneca. You will get aligned mentors throughout your time here. So again, people who will stay with you for those 2 years to help you mentor you through the program, helping you make decisions on the choices you make around the rotations and projects that you'll be working on, and also about those next decisions on your career and the steps to take. And also alongside all of this is that encouragement to talk about the science that you do. So you are in an R&D organization where science is kind of driving the projects that you'll be working on, and it's about sharing that information with the wider community, both from a data science perspective, but also a scientific perspective as well. So to help us to publicize this and the great work that our graduates do whilst with us, you would be expected to take part in poster sessions that were organised at the end of each of the rotations to really discuss the science that's going on, the work that you're doing to contribute to that, and help to improve your own understanding of the work that's going on at AstraZeneca, but also to share that amongst the wider R&D community as well. Should we go to the next slide, Adam? So the rotations that you do on joining us into the program, actually they say you do 3 8-month rotations across the 2 years. And these are self-chosen. So by this we mean, as you are joining the organisation, we will go out to the different departments and teams that sit within R&D and ask them to propose possible data science and AI projects that you could be working on. These would then be shared with you for selection based on your own interests, your own skills, or your own development needs. And this process would happen at each point as you're coming up to the end of your next rotation and selecting your next one. They have to be based within R&D, so they have to be based within either R&D oncology or R&D biopharmaceuticals, helping to contribute to that science. But there's a huge array of possibilities in R&D that you could be working on. R&D covers everything from those early target identification, validation projects, through the actual development and identification of new therapies and design of those, through into the actual delivery of clinical trials as well. And data science and AI is having an impact across that whole entire spectrum of work that we do in R&D. So there's a huge amount of choice, huge amount of possibilities of work that you could be doing. And as I say, you would choose these based on your own development needs or interests, but also they're designed to give you a breadth of experience across R&D, so you can further your scientific understanding as well alongside that technical development in your chosen fields. If you go to the next slide, Adam. So this talks about the development again. So the development program that we would enroll you on is focused on that delivery of personal and professional development, which will help you in your future. It's about those tools such as communication, stakeholder management, time management, self-awareness, things that we believe are important to teach to any individual to help them in their career, but are often delivered quite late in your professional career. So we like to try and provide these opportunity for that development early on. We do have modules that are delivered and online, as well as online workshops and also online resources that we discussed in Adam's slides, such as Mind Tools and Degreed, which are platforms that can access some of these opportunities for that development. And then this is complemented by that mentoring and also access to some coaching throughout the 2 years that you'll be with us. Next slide. So this just now talks a little bit about some of the achievements that our graduates have had. Now, some of this data actually runs in parallel with our R&D program, so around the publications that we've had. But in terms of the data science program, we've had a number of contributions recently, and I think actually this year we've already had 3 publications in the data science space. One of which was in Nature Machine Intelligence, which is a new journal in Nature, but is likely to be a high impact publication. So this contributes to that. This just highlights the quality of the work that graduates coming onto our program are working towards and helping to contribute, drive our science. It really is cutting edge, novel research that you would be involved with the opportunity to either publish externally, maybe present at universities, or internally through our own awards and communications platforms as well. And it really just talks to that pushing the boundaries of science and really helping us to contribute and deliver our goals of delivering those therapies out to patients ultimately. Next slide. So this slide I've taken from one of our current data science and AI graduates from a talk they delivered a bit ago. And this talks a little bit about some of the tools that they've learned throughout their 2 years so far in the program. They're approaching the end of the program. And this just talks about a huge amount of the different tools or platforms that they've worked on and where they've gained experience. Now, my background isn't data science and AI, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by talking about this in too much depth. But there's a huge amount of possibilities from the science of actually working with mass cytometry processing and imaging, but then using Siamese networks or neural networks to actually deliver those methods out to the scientists. So it's a real combination of some of the scientific knowledge which we would help to build into you, but you utilizing that data science skills that you would bring to translate the work that we're trying to do into those models. On to the next slide. So this slide talks a bit about the wider support networks that we have at AstraZeneca that supports all of our early talent communities. So we have an organization, a global organization that's set up called AZ Inspire, and this covers all of the early talent community that Adam talked about, from those apprentices and undergraduates right the way through to those postdocs and PhD studentships. And they organise internal seminars, symposia with the aim of improving that wider knowledge of the organisation and the pharmaceutical industry, and helping you to make connections in different parts of the organisation, and also to build those networks. It's, again, that's an important part of working in science in an organisation like AstraZeneca, is building that network of people to help you deliver your work, but also to gain that understanding of the wider community that exists as well. On to the next slide. So I think the next slide highlights one of our current graduates who's based over in Gothenburg. So her journey through AstraZeneca to date. So Andrea graduated from a bioinformatics course, master's in Edinburgh. So she had a bit of biological knowledge from the bioinformatics course, but generally it was more the computational science and element. And she started off her first placement in machine learning and AI, where she was actually looking at segmentation of rodent heart images to increase the efficiency of reporting to those project teams. She's then moved on into a diagnostic sciences position, helping to develop a recommender system for testing in respiratory diseases, and how that collection analysis of that data in a clinical environment, so a bit later through the pipeline. And her final rotation has then been within a group called Clinical Pharmacology and Quantitative Pharmacology, where she was delivering some knowledge graph predictions to identify patient populations that are susceptible to rare adverse events from taking a tyrosine kinase inhibitor or a particular treatment for a particular disease, to again see if you could identify that up front, which helps in terms of the safety of our products, which is obviously a key important factor when we're looking to deliver new therapies out to the market. So she's got a huge breadth of experience across different areas, contributing to different areas of science and learning new technical skills through her journey. And Andrea is currently identified a PhD, and so when she comes to the end of the program in a few months' time, she will be moving on to complete that PhD. I think so. I'm not going to go through these in any particular detail, but these are just some of the examples of projects that you could be working on to kind of give you an idea of the breadth of opportunity that exists within an R&D. So this project just talks a little bit about sorry, can you go back? Yeah, so predicting the inhibition from targets, new chemical activity. So actually helping our chemists to design new molecules using neural networks. And this is actually where the publication in Nature Machine Intelligence was delivered. The next project, again, is using that graphical representation to deliver more predictive models. So again, predicting patients' response to drugs, which is quite important in terms of trying to identify which therapies or which areas we should be working on. And this was done in an oncology setting. And then I think there's one more slide, which talks about using deep learning and analysis for that quantification of animal imaging, this is actually Andrea's project that I highlighted, that first project, where she was using segmentation of MRI images and then the deep convolution networks to help that segmentation to understand the injection fraction of blood coming out of one of the ventricles in the heart. So some really a diverse set of projects there that's available, and only a small insight into what work you could be working on within the data science program within our R&D organization. Just to say finally, before I hand over to Kim and Lottie, obviously I've talked a little bit about the science, and you would be working on those scientific projects, but it isn't that understanding, that's not what we're after in the graduates who apply this program. We can build that knowledge and understanding of the science into you through those projects, and it really is the data science and computational skills that we are looking for. So if you're looking at this thinking, I have no clue what he's talked about in terms of proteins and segmentation of heart ventricles, don't worry, that's the bit we can build into you, and it is those skills in data science, Python, or coding type skills that we're really looking for. I think that was the last slide.
Thank you very much, Michael. It was. I think we were hoping that Kim will be able to talk through the technology leadership program with Lottie. I can see Lottie on the call, but I'm not sure, Jack, whether or not you can see if Kim's joined.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, you can. Hi everybody. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, so if we go to the next slide, that would be brilliant. I promise you're not going to have to put up with me for too long. I've brought along with me this evening one of my fabulous graduates, Lottie, who's going to talk through a little bit about what it's like to actually be on the programme and talk you through her journey thus far and some of the cool things that she's been working on. But I'm Kim Brandt, and I am the IT Early Talent Partner here at AstraZeneca. So I think I have the best job in IT, but I get to look after all of our global graduates and also our apprentices here in the UK. So as well as this global technology leadership program that we have in IT, we also have a degree apprenticeship program as well. And then Lottie, should I you want to do a quick hello?
Yep, hi folks. So I'm Lottie Bahardian. So I'm currently in my second year of the IT graduate scheme at AstraZeneca. So I'll be talking to you a little bit later about my experience so far.
Fabulous, thank you. Adam, if you could go to the next slide. So I appreciate there's this slide's quite busy, and busy for a couple of reasons. Because of the different years and the way that we run this program, it means that you rotate at different times. But fundamentally, our IT graduate program is a 3-year program. The way that we do it is we do 3 main rotations that all bring something different, and then we consolidate you for a year. So if I walk you through this timeline, hopefully it will make sense. So if you were to be successful in our program, you join us in September, and you have your first rotation, which is assigned to you by us, but it's not something we just make up, and it's not necessarily a rotation where there's a business need and we just put you in that rotation. We look at your background, we look at your interests. Often we reach out to you before joining us and put you in contact with some of our managers. I have a really great working group with representatives, which is represented by all of the different areas in IT. We really think about what rotation can you come in and utilize your skills and knowledge and hit the ground running. So that is your first 8 months. Your second rotation, we ask you and encourage you to go out into the business. And when I say business, I mean outside of IT, so outside of our business within the IT function. So that means you could go and work in Michael's area in R&D, you could go and work in operations, you could go and work in pharmaceutical technology and development, you could go and work for HR or finance. But it's an opportunity for you to broaden your skills and your capabilities. For your third rotation, there is the possibility to go on an international assignment. So we are based all over the world. IT is in over 60 countries with AstraZeneca, but we offer this program in the UK, in the US, in Sweden, in China, and then now also this year in Guadalajara in Mexico. So they are the kind of countries and areas that we see most people go on international assignment. But that being said, you could go and be based in any of the countries where we have representation. And that kind of takes you to the end of 2 years, and then you enter consolidation, which is where Lottie has just headed, which is scary. I can't believe we're already there. But what we ask you to do as you head into year 3 is to think about what area of IT you'd like to land in. So we're very fortunate in AstraZeneca. We've got about 5,500 people in our IT function. And what that means is that we have different areas of IT. So things like research and development, operations, end user services, data, what else have we got? Commercial. So we ask you in a broad sense, what area of IT you'd like to consolidate in. And we spend the next year working with our IT leadership team member, working with our business partners, working with you, the individuals, to really think about what skills and capabilities can we help you get in the next year that is going to allow you to go on to do the dream role that you want to do. And it means that you leave the program being the very best person you can be and gaining all of the development. So with that, I think I will pass over to Lottie to talk about herself and where she's got up to on the program.
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, hi folks. Yeah, as Kim mentioned, so essentially I am now 2 years into my role at the IT graduate scheme and about to enter my consolidation year literally next week. So yes, I just wanted to add this slide in here just to show you that actually, contrary to popular belief, you don't actually have to have a very in-depth IT heavy background to end up on the IT leadership program. So I myself have had quite a kind of healthcare focused background. All my family are medics. I studied biomedical sciences at university, and it's something that I'm particularly really passionate about. It was only when I left university and joined a US tech startup that I really kind of saw technology in action. It was my first time experiencing AI and specifically what that could do for kind of the online publishing world. And so at that point in my life, I kind of thought, you know what, I really hope that I'd love to see this kind of in that healthcare setting, to see kind of what innovative technologies can do to healthcare and also to our drug discovery process. So when the opportunity came up to apply to the IT graduate scheme, I immediately jumped at the chance, and not only to kind of experience what that looks like in a pharmaceutical setting, but also to join a company that really aligned with my own beliefs and my own interests as well. So moving on to the next slide, please. You might have to click once. Yep. Yeah, so essentially this is a summary of my 3 rotations so far at the company. As Kim mentioned, so our first assignment is really kind of, it's kind of tailored to what you express an interest in at your assessment centre and to the early talent working group. So I was initially placed in an area called end user services. So service is kind of the bedrock of IT that kind of sits at the very foundation of what IT does. So they're the kind of people keeping the lights on, so to speak. So they manage kind of security, they manage knowledge, incidents, problems, changes, you name it. It's all kind of managed through a core service that runs throughout every single pillar of the business that kind of Adam touched on previously. So at the very core of that, we have a system called ServiceNow, which helps to kind of manage all those different groups through different applications. And my role during that time was to kind of look at the different applications coming onto the system and seeing how that could bring kind of innovative change to each of those service functions. So one of them, which I really enjoyed, was looking at a machine learning called Agent Intelligence. And that was looking specifically at how we could kind of categorize and automatically assign service desk tickets when they arose. So it meant that, for example, if we had a really major incident at any point, then we could quickly categorize that and get it assigned and solved before it had real kind of large implications across the company. So it was quite a critical project for us. Another one was also working with a lot of different what's called product owners. So there were people from those individual teams who kind of owned a section of that application, and kind of I worked with them to help develop their module and kind of automate that a little bit more so that it could kind of streamline their processes and make it a lot faster for them. At that point as well, when you first entered the company, you also assigned a mentor as well as a graduate buddy. So I'll go into that in a little bit more detail next. So I'll move on to the next section, please. Yeah, so essentially from there, I kind of thought, right, I've seen what the core of IT foundation looks like. Now I'd really love to experience that in a kind of a CFIT area. So that is what's known as a customer facing IT area. So at this point, I moved from Macclesfield down to our labs in Cambridge to work on a project called Digital Lab. So the whole premise of this project was essentially to implement different digital technologies to help save early phase scientists time. So for example, if you're a scientist working in the lab, you'll typically have an instrument that you're performing your analysis on that is connected to a PC. And what we sometimes see in those labs, for example, is where scientists are collecting their data, that PC might not always be networked. So sometimes they end up kind of writing their data on the backs of gloves, on USB sticks, taking pictures on their personal phones. You know, so at the end of the day, it means a huge problem for us in terms of our data capture, because it not only kind of interrupts our data integrity and the safety, the security of that data, but also kind of impacts how we use things like AI, machine learning down the line. So part of my role was to focus on 2 key technologies. One was around voice, which was a really interesting trial, and the second was around tablet technologies. So obviously our tablets are essentially had the same functionality as your laptop, they're a little bit more portable. You could click off the keyboard, you know, write on the screen with a stylus, and essentially it enabled scientists to move seamlessly from the lab back to the office and back again. So it completely revolutionized the experiment write-up process. And the feedback we had was so positive, and we ended up rolling out these devices to over 600 scientists across Cambridge, Gothenburg, and Boston. So I hope that it demonstrates to you that these projects that you get involved in are not kind of you're not just assigned to make the tea. You really get involved in huge projects that have a massive impact on the whole of the AstraZeneca community, really. So if we click again, please. Yes, so my third and final rotation was focusing on a system upgrade, which was in commercial IT. So commercial IT is an interesting area because so previously I'd seen the very start of the drug discovery process, but commercial IT is at the other end of the spectrum, focusing on, okay, so once those drugs are developed, how do we then get those drugs out to patients? So Model N is a system that essentially manages all our contracts with third parties who then supply those drugs out to patients. So it manages billions of dollars of revenue for us every day. So it's it was a very critical system for us, and so quite high pressured. But during my time there, I managed to project manage part of the technical stream that was working on kind of getting our environment set up in the system, making sure that we could test and connect out to our different interfaces properly. And I also dabbled with compliance at that point as well. So getting involved in kind of SOX controls and what that meant in terms of our system functionality from there. So if you click to the next slide, please. Yes, so that's a little bit of a highlight about the work that I do, but really that's just a small portion of the picture. When you join the IT Graduate Network, you gain a huge number of friendships and a huge, amazing network of people around you from all over the globe who are there to support you and also going through exactly the same things as you are. So this is a picture of our induction week where you meet all the graduates from across the globe. And kind of get to go through and start off the journey together. If you click again, please. So then really this is just a small picture of what you could get involved in at the company. These are what's called employee resource groups. So we've got groups called AZ Inspire that help teach and focus on the inclusion of LGBTQ+ communities across our company, making sure that everybody can bring their whole selves to work. As Adam mentioned before, we have a huge pushed our sustainability at our company today. So this is focusing on kind of becoming carbon neutral in the next 10 years. So we have crowdsourcing events across the company to capture different people's ideas and wants for that strategy. So everybody's voice is heard, which is amazing. And on the top, in the bottom left right corner there, you can see, for example, us at the Big Bang event as well, which is focusing on STEM and science education across the UK as well. So if you click again onto the next slide, please. So in summary, essentially, of course I'm biased, but I really encourage you to apply for the IT graduate scheme. It is a brilliant opportunity and one that I would never go back and replace. It's brilliant in the fact that you can follow your interests. It's very self-led. You're not just limited for one site. You can look globally. You're not just limited to IT. You can look across the business, and it gives you real responsibility to handle business critical projects, all really with the eventual goal of bettering the lives of patients. Yes, so that is a very brief summary of the things that I've done in my time at the grad scheme. I think I'll hand back to Adam at this point.
Thanks very much, Lottie. I'm just going to whip through some of the other points in terms of our early talent programs for those of you who might be interested in finding out a little bit more before we then move on to the Q&A. So AstraZeneca does have a wide range of PhDs that we sponsor. All of our PhDs are available on finderphd.com. So we advertise them there in partnership with the education institution that's accrediting the PhD. So if you're interested in exploring PhDs with AstraZeneca, do have a look at that and set up an alert for AstraZeneca on finderphd.com. We also have a very active postdoc program at AstraZeneca. So those amongst you who are currently studying a PhD or who may be thinking about a PhD in the future, I'd encourage you to consider AstraZeneca's postdoc program, which runs in Sweden, the UK, and the US. And again, it is another 2 + 1 year, effectively a 3-year program. We hire about 50 postdocs across AstraZeneca every year. And if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about postdocs at AstraZeneca, I'd also encourage you to connect, if you use LinkedIn, which hopefully you do, with Sean Keneally, who's our postdoc program recruiter. His name is on the top right-hand side there in that circle. And Just a little note on the application process for the majority of our early talent programs. Simple, straightforward, apply online. So search careers.astrazeneca.com/early-talent, and you'll see an overview of all of our early talent programs split by career level. So if you're an undergraduate, or if you're master's or a PhD level student, you'll see what the options are available to you on that page. When the applications are open and the adverts are live, and just to remind you, adverts are live. We are receiving applications now for our data sciences and AI graduate program and our technology leadership program that you've just heard so much about. You'll be able to apply. You'll be asked to complete online games. So we have a system called Pymetrics, which is a way of us modeling and assessing your values and seeing how they link to those 5 values that we mentioned during the earlier part of the presentation. You may be asked to complete a cognitive and situational judgment test accompanied by SHL, depending on which program you apply to. You may also be asked to conduct a video interview, which is by a company called HireView, which is a platform that we use. So what I would say there is, you won't be asked to do all of those things, but depending on the program that you apply to, these could be an indication of the kind of ways in which we assess you as part of the screening process. As things stand currently, and obviously COVID's affected our processes, so we've done them virtually this year, but we currently use assessment centres for assessing all of our graduate programmes, and certainly the plan is to continue. There will probably be virtual assessment centres again this year, unless things rapidly change. And then obviously, simple as that, sounds straightforward, doesn't it? Attend the assessment centre and then you'll receive an offer of employment. So that's the process. I just wanted to thank you all for your patience and for listening. We have gone over time, but I'm very happy to stick around. Hopefully some of my colleagues will be too, to answer your questions. I just ask you really to register your interest or sign up for more information about the programs that you've heard about and for AstraZeneca's early talent generally by clicking through on the link and filling out a short form which will take you into our systems. And then we're going to make this recording available, and hopefully the slides will be accessible to you too. So this sign up will be there too. And then really now just to welcome applications. We always welcome applications. To welcome the participants on this session to ask us any questions they might have. Whether you're interested in asking us questions or not, we would really, really welcome contact from you. So we have we're all on LinkedIn. If you search for us or click through on the links in this presentation, you'll see our LinkedIn profiles. But by all means, connect with us, and we'll be happy to take questions offline separately. But I'm now going to just stop the presentation, so hopefully we can see any chat that might be shared. And we'll perhaps take questions from you as a group. Back over to you, Jack, if you want to introduce this session or need to give any instructions about the process and how people should access the Q&A.
Yeah, so thank you very much, guys. That was a really good and insightful presentation there. So if you guys have got any questions, just drop them in the chat and we can just have a work through them. So only first thing is, if any of you guys could get the link to the the vacancies or like the recruitment page, are we able to get that just posted in the chat?
Absolutely, yeah.
We've got a question from Seifu. How long can a student expect to wait until they hear back about the application with AstraZeneca?
Yep, so that's a good question. I will say that all of our applications for our early talent programs are opening and closing dates are listed on the advert. So when you apply for the advert, you will see when we're opening and when we're closing our adverts, and you should expect to hear within 2 weeks of the closing date of the application. Obviously, this being a sort of cyclical process, many of our programs which are open now won't close until January, and it does unfortunately mean that we can't guarantee that you'll hear anything until 2 weeks after the closing date. But you know that's our sort of standard commitment and our sort of the way in which we work.
Brilliant. Right, just have a look. Got any other questions? Just having a scroll through the chat. Is there any sponsorship available? So I think visa sponsorship available for international students for the graduate programs.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And what I would say is, if you are going to be completing your qualification in 2021 or later, if you may be eligible in the UK for a post-study work visa or the graduate route into employment. Now, what I would say is there's this small thing going on called Brexit, as well as this equally important small thing going on called COVID at the moment. And so we are, like all other employers in the UK, waiting for the governments to formally publish their guidance on the new post-study work visa. They've given us details of it. We believe that most of our programs would give most graduate level candidates eligibility for that post-study work visa, but the government hasn't actually confirmed and published and sort of given the details of that. So if you're applying for the UK and you might be eligible for the post-study work visa, then in theory, yes. But what I would also say is it really depends on the timings, because the government's talked about summer of next year. Our applications close January, February, March, depending on the program, and we would need to make offers and decisions sort of following those application closing dates. So the timings might be quite challenging for us. That being said, if you're an international student and you're interested in joining some of our AstraZeneca early talent programs, I would also encourage you to think about career opportunities in Sweden. You will have heard us talk briefly about Gothenburg and Södertälje as two of our big sites in Sweden. We have a fantastic number of different programs available in Sweden, and the immigration and visa system in Sweden is much more transparent and open. It's much easier if you're an international student to secure a visa to work in Sweden. And to give you an example, Gothenburg, one of our big sites in Sweden, we have over 50 different nationalities working there. So it's a really international global site. Many of them are from across the EU, but of course, many of them are from locations outside of that country, outside of the EU too.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that. I think we just got one more here from David. So with regards to the shift to working from home, is most stuff decently suited in AstraZeneca for techie roles for work from home? So your roles, are they well structured and well sort of acquainted with the new remote working? I can see you guys probably working from home as well at the moment. So basically the adaptation, how has that been, and is it going well in that sense?
Lottie's probably best to answer this one, I reckon.
Yeah, I can jump in. So I think naturally, because we're a global company, obviously we are very connected over Teams, etc. So I think naturally you'll always be corresponding with people, via tech anyway. So in that regard, it's really easy to kind of connect with anybody all over the globe. I think so. There are certain roles that lend themselves better to being on site than others. So obviously, it really depends on where you end up. So for example, if you're working in operations, specifically kind of, in manufacturing on supply chains, then you might want to be there in person. And obviously all our sites have now been made to be kind of COVID friendly or unfriendly. So people kind of can go onto site, can receive PCR tests and make sure that they're COVID free.
I think it's COVID secure, Lottie,
That's the one.
rather than friendly or unfriendly.
Unfriendly.
I like it. We might try and get the leadership team to change the naming. I like it.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. So I'd say that it really depends on your role. I found personally that it's very, very easy to transition, and especially kind of going out to America for my third rotation and then having to come back again. It's been extremely smooth. And yeah, so I definitely wouldn't, say that you're kind of confined to either environment. It's very set up to support you both ways.
Brilliant, thank you for that. So just another question: is the graduate program paid? I would imagine so. It is, right, guys? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So is the session being recorded? Yeah, it'll be made available later. Just keep an eye on our social media, and we'll send an email out as well. So another question: I had a 2:2 degree in my bachelor's, and now I'm an MSc student in data science. If I get a first in my MSc data science, will I be eligible to apply? So are you able to bypass the 2:1 undergraduate requirement with a higher qualification?
I think that's a really good question, and I would generally say we tend to focus more on the more up-to-date qualification. So if you are doing a master's and you're on track to achieve a first, for example, I think we would take that into consideration and would say yes. Yeah, unless Michael or Kim sort of gives a steer any other way on that one.
No, I think that's right. I think, it's the recent degree, I guess, is the one that we would take into consideration. So absolutely, I think you would be eligible if you were on track to achieve a first in your MSc.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. Same with my program.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, guys. One from Juhi here. So how can we decide on which one to apply with regards to data science and IT? Both are very similar. I mean, which one would be more so basically which one would be more suitable? How would you decide which sort of strand to follow? So I guess what questions would you ask yourself then to decide?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I guess the way I would say the differences are in a data science role, you'll be specifically working on data science. So you're going to need a data science background. You're going to need, a bit more of a specific targeted kind of study up until this point. You're also probably going to want to ask yourself, is data science definitely what I want to do and definitely where I want to land? And if it is, then I'd probably steer you in the direction of the data science role and program. For my technology leadership program, it's you could very feasibly be doing do a rotation in data science. You could very well land in data science. What you don't have to have decided is data science exactly what I want to do? You may want to explore a little bit more about IT. You may want to, you may not have made your mind up yet. You may not be as technical, in which case I'd probably steer you towards my program. Michael, Adam, please jump in if I'm talking out of term here.
No, I think you've made a really important point there, Kim. I think what I'd say, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but one of the differences between the two programs is the data sciences and AI program, Michael mentioned at the beginning, sits within the research and development function. So if you're in anything that you do within data sciences and AI will be closely linked to the discovery and development of our drugs and our medicine. So, you will be directly contributing towards advancing and speeding up and automating and getting the best out of our data as it relates to us getting new drug candidates through the process and launched. If you're joining the IT and the technology leadership program, you could be facing off to other internal business functions, which might be manufacturing, which might be what we call enabling, so finance, human resources. It could be supply chain. It could be our commercial organization, as Lottie mentioned in one of the placements that she had. So you'll be exposed potentially to a broader range of different parts of the organization. The data sciences and AI is all about contributing in a way and using your data science, machine learning, etc. skills to really accelerate and advance our science. So that's another key differentiator. But that being said, of course, you'll see the advert opening and closing dates. There's nothing stopping you from applying for more than one of the programs if you feel they're both very interesting for you. So it's not like you can only apply for one.
Yeah, thank you. Another question here from Uwan. So Adam, you spoke earlier about AstraZeneca being entrepreneurial and the explorative areas of research, aside from oncology, etc. How does AstraZeneca balance winning or taking a faster route with giving opportunities for graduates to learn? So how do you, I guess, manage your commercial goals and targets with enabling graduates to work at a pace and a speed that enables them to learn effectively?
I think I can maybe comment on this one, but I think in R&D, I mean, the timeframes we're talking about in terms of some of the delivery is quite long, and an 8-month placement that you're likely to be working on is the timelines are challenging in there. But we obviously support graduates. It's not throwing them in completely at the deep end and saying, here you are, you don't know what you're doing, but we're just going to throw this at you and we're really going to push. So there is a lot of support in there, and I think Lottie can probably comment in the end about her experiences and the support that she's got. So it isn't just about trying to push these things forward, and when we get those projects from the team, there's a wide understanding amongst AstraZeneca of where the graduates are and how much the contribution is likely to be through that time. But we want you working on current live projects, and we want you to be able to deliver in those spaces. So I think it's a balance between the two, but it isn't, we wouldn't be pushing through things at a risk of a graduate not taking those opportunities to deliver. I think it would be the main take home, and that there is that support there to help you to develop your skills and develop through those 8 months that you will be working on the project that you chosen or you were assigned, depending on the program. But yeah, Lottie, I don't know if you can comment on your experience of the support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that the thing that I've noticed about the graduate scheme is that there is a massive emphasis on making sure that you follow your personal interests. And throughout the entire process, I found that there's an incredible amount of support there. So for example, in my second rotation as a business analyst, I was it's a role that's very kind of in the detail, it's very technical. It's kind of being there to represent a scientist's voice and know their world inside and out. But actually at that point, my project manager, who I reported to, said, actually, you know what, like, I think you should go for a project management role. It would really push you. I could tell that I've never managed people before, but then he was confident, like, you're a very people person, good at communication, like really try and go for it. And I have struggled in the role. There's been days where, I don't get it right, and that's absolutely fine, because I think that even when I'm working on a system that is so critical and so kind of important to our functionality, then you always have people around you who are there to say, okay, so you don't do this so good, but you do this really well, so try and make this better, and then hopefully the two will marry up and are there to kind of coach you through that process. So it's all about learning, and as Adam was saying before, lifelong learning is a huge part of that process as well. So yeah, I wouldn't let that put you off in the slightest.
Thank you both. So question here about applying to roles in multiple locations. So is it possible to apply for the same roles or similar roles across all of your, multiple of your global offices? So example here is it possible to apply for like a data science role in the UK and then an AI role in Sweden? Are you allowed to have these concurrent applications, and does that affect anything?
I think the answer to that is, yeah, you can have concurrent applications. We try and identify when that happens, and we try and work with you, if you're of interest to more than one program, to select the application to progress that is most appropriate for you based on your skills and experience. So for example, the timings of our assessment centres and our processes sometimes means that in the UK we go slightly earlier than we do in Sweden. So obviously, if we can see that you've applied for both the Sweden opportunity and the UK opportunity, and we want to move forward to the assessment centre in the UK before Sweden, and we want to consider you, then we'll obviously reach out to you and sort of invite you in that respect. And it might be that if we know you're interested in the same programme in another location as well, when we think about you and we assess you in the UK, if that's where we go first, we may say, okay, is this the right person for us to hire into the program, or one of the right people for us to hire into the program in the UK, or are we thinking that actually this candidate might be more appropriate and thrive in the program in Sweden, for example? So we try and work with you to manage that. But what I would say is, be driven in part by your eligibility to work as well. If you are as sad as I am to say this, if you're a UK national at the moment, clearly we don't yet know at the moment what the outcome is going to be in terms of eligibility to work in Sweden. Sweden's a very open culture, so I would be very surprised if we don't have a lot of the rights to live and work in Sweden. But if you're applying for the UK and Sweden and you're British, then it's probably going to be an easier process this year until we're clearer for us to look at and focus on you as a UK applicant for a UK program. But that's not to say that you can't consider other options as well.
The only thing I'd flag while we're here for my technology program is that the UK stuff closes before my Sweden application goes live. So if you were considering or did want to, in this example for the UK and Sweden, you'd need to put it in your application process and make it clear which one was your preference, because they don't run concurrently. Just a flag for mine. Michael, I don't know about yours.
Ours all run concurrently at the moment. I think there is a slight delay at the end, closing dates, but they're all open at this time.
But just on the back of Kim's point, actually, which is a really good one, you know, you may apply for the program in the UK in Kim's technology leadership program. You may not be selected to come to the assessment centre in the UK, but that shouldn't mean that you shouldn't apply for the program in Sweden, because we have a different team reviewing the applications in Sweden. We have slightly different drivers of what we're looking for in different countries and different locations. So you know, you could potentially have two bites of the cherry, for example, especially if you're an EU student studying in the UK and you're interested in the technology leadership program.
Great, thank you all. So just a general one here then. So in terms of the interview process, in terms of what you look for in candidates, is there, if you had to come up with the top 3 sort of qualities or attributes that you look for in your candidates, what would you say they are?
I'm going to start and say candidates who share our values. Those 5 values are really important to us. We will assess everyone who joins AstraZeneca based on those 5 values that we talked about earlier in the session. So that would be my one key observation, but I'm going to leave it to Michael and to Kim and maybe Lottie to contribute something.
No, I think absolutely right. Following the values is the key, you know, one of the key drivers. We set those values. They're important to AstraZeneca. They guide everything that we kind of do. And so we want to be able to see candidates who are also able to demonstrate those values in their experiences, whether that be, you know, at home, in clubs or sports teams, or through university, or any work experience, whether relevant or not. You know, seeing how people can demonstrate those values. We also say, you know, as a scientist, but also in a large global company, that communication and team working and collaboration are really important aspects as well. Being able to kind of collaborate and communicate with your peers locally, but also internationally, is kind of important, you know, in terms of scientists in particular, but I think just generally across the sort of multi-geographic teams that we actually operate in as well.
Yeah, I agree with all of the above points. I think the only things I would add is kind of an enthusiasm and willingness to learn around the programs. These programs are designed to really push you out of your comfort zone and stretch you. And if that's not something that you're up for and keen to do, then I would suggest they aren't quite the programs for you. So we're always looking for that. The other thing that we tend to look for in the program as well is the ability to think outside of the box and think more broadly. You know, when we've been working in AstraZeneca for a certain amount of years, sometimes you are a little bit stuck in the thought process. So we're always really looking for people that have the confidence and ability to come in and speak up and think a little bit more broadly, to question why we do what we do, so that we can continuously improve.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Kim, and you know, some of the feedback that we get from our placement managers who host graduates on programs is that they really value having the graduates in their teams, because they do come at it with a fresh pair of eyes, and they do really contribute in a way that perhaps isn't necessarily anticipated or expected. So we know we try not to make it a scary, intimidating process coming into a big corporate organization like AstraZeneca. We know it can be sometimes, just by nature of the fact that it's a big change for you. But I'm always amazed at just how much opportunity to contribute and make real impact and really get things done that are important to the organization that our graduates and our early talent get here at the organization. You know, as Lottie mentioned earlier, you know, you are not just sort of patted on the head and given a small project to get involved in that no one really cares about because, you know, you're on an early talent program and, you know, you're not really asked to do anything serious. You know, we are very fortunate as an organization. We are growing at a really rapid pace. We have more great clients than we can possibly cope with and possibly get through to market. So as a result of that, you know, everything that we are doing, everything that people who work on our programs are doing, is contributing something really valuable to our organization. And you know, that growth opportunity is absolutely there, but support, and support to fail sometimes. As we said earlier, science, science is all about testing, coming up with new ideas, testing them, seeing which ones succeed, seeing which ones fail. And the attitude within the organization is very much, it's okay if your ideas don't pan out. It's okay if you're not right first time. We'll do everything we can to try and support you in exploring that. We would rather have an innovative, creative individual in the organisation who gets it wrong a few times, who stumbles and needs to learn, but comes up with a great idea, than someone who is absolutely playing it safe all the time, never gets it wrong, but really doesn't add any value over and above what we're already doing, because we won't push the boundaries of science if we don't try that new approach or hear that new voice and have a more sort of open and inclusive approach to the right way of doing things, or the next way to try something.
Yeah, great, thank you guys. Just the last couple of questions now, because we're coming up to about 6:30. So just one on in terms of mobility within the company. So two sides to this then. So in terms of, firstly, those who may start in the UK or Sweden or anywhere else, is there a structure in place within the company to sort of support them to potentially relocate, overseas to another office if somebody decides, 5 years into career, 7 years, however long, that they're looking to, change of scene, they want to move abroad? Is there support, in place for that to happen? Is there any sort of structure? And also the second one then would be, in terms of a career change, if you enter maybe into I don't know, marketing or technology, is there a space for you to be able to have that career change if you want, again, that change, if you feel as though you're sort of stagnating or just or want to change course at some point?
Sorry guys, I'll take those both quickly, and then I have to leave at 6:30, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What I would say is, we're a global company, and your career will progress as you drive and develop it. And we certainly have examples of people from across our organisation who move from the UK to Sweden or to the US or internationally, and Lottie's already experienced life and work in the US as a graduate on the programme. So there's no kind of automatic, we'll push people out to different countries. It's always a discussion that's based on what you can contribute and what the opportunities are. So what's right for you, what's right for the business. But those international assignments and those international career development opportunities are kind of, I guess it's fair to say, are slightly more prestigious. It's a bigger lift for us as a business to facilitate that. So you've got to want it, you've got to drive it, and you've got to be able to build those networks that help sort of demonstrate the interest and the passion that you have. But the opportunities are absolutely there. And then I think the second question was
about your career change. If somebody enters in tech and then wants to change to another business function because they want basically a different job content.
Yep. Yeah. So thanks, Jack. Apologies. So we absolutely encourage that, and if that's right for you and that's right for the business, then you can absolutely do it. And I joined AstraZeneca 5 years ago in talent acquisition, so that sits within our HR function. I then moved out into the business, so to run basically Michael does the job that I did a couple of years ago. So running our R&D and data sciences and AI graduate program. It was a phenomenal experience for me. It was something that I hadn't have any program management experience. I wasn't a scientist, and I was really, really pleased that my line manager encouraged me to explore an option outside of the function that I was embedded in. So it certainly happens. That being said, I know that the teams that train you and develop you, really, really work hard to try and give you a progressive career in the function that you join. But we really encourage people, especially in what we call our enabling functions, so that IT, technology, HR, finance, to experience life in the business, in the science units, in the commercial units, to get a really good understanding of what it's like in that area. And Michael's obviously done the reverse. He's been a scientist, worked in the labs, and he's now moved into program management within. I'm not sure if we can claim you in HR, Michael, but certainly in a new in a new part of the organisation.
I guess I have a graduate example from a location perspective. I've got one in Lottie's year, the lovely Sam. and he's a UK graduate. He's consolidating in operations IT, and that is going to land him in Södertälje in Sweden. He did his international assignment there. I actually haven't got him back yet. He has got to come back at Christmas, and he's going to do a data science rotation, in fact, during his consolidation, to gain a skill set that they need over there, and then he's going to take a local permanent contract in Sweden. So just from a location standpoint, shows you that, you know, it is totally doable. It suits him out there. He loves it, and actually from a work perspective, he's bringing a huge amount of insight and cultural insight into the Södertälje site. So it is very doable straight after a grad program too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll just briefly comment on my opportunities that I've had through my career. So I think it's always been encouraged. I think, as Adam sort of pointed out, and Kim, that you have to want to drive some of this yourself, but there's a lot of secondment opportunities that are advertised internally within AstraZeneca. So if you transition into a full-time position at the end of the programs, or you secure a full-time role anyway, then, you know, there are secondment opportunities in different parts of the business to help people to develop new skills, or to go into different areas of the business. Now, they usually have to align with your development goals and aspirations, and it's a process that you have to start a few years before, I would say, normally, to kind of highlight to people this is an area you see your career trajectory going in. There's skills that would benefit either the team you're in now or maybe your aspirations further down the line, but those are generally supported, and those opportunities do come up. And you know, like Adam said, this opportunity came about for me with Adam moving out of his role, but it was an area that I gained some skills through supporting our undergraduates through the program that we run there, and was an area that I wanted to move into, to gain some of those management experiences and line management responsibilities, things that I didn't have from my research career, and I was supported and obviously applied for the role and was lucky enough to be selected, to take it on. So yeah, they do occur, but a lot of it is self-driven as well.
Yeah, that's great. I'm conscious of time. That's great. But thank you all for your fantastic responses and the quality of questions as well. If there are any further questions, then Joy has kindly offered to get those answers to you. So her email is akojp@cardiff.ac.uk. Details are in the chat. So just have a quick look in there and save those details if you have any further questions. But yeah, everybody, thank you for attending today's session. It's been great to have you on, and great to learn about all of the wonderful things that AstraZeneca is achieving, and just the sheer range of your graduate programs. So yeah, thank you everybody for attending.
No worries. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Enjoy your evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.